Good afternoon, everybody, and I hope you all are keeping safe. Thank you so much for joining us amidst this pandemic, and thank you for actually, taking interest in a session. So allow me to introduce the session for today, which is Spark or Hadoop, which framework is the best for your big data analytics. I'm Anu, and I welcome you all on behalf of ZBI Academy. I'll also take like a few minutes to welcome Dr. Ravi, who's the speaker for today's session, and I'll just introduce him to you. So Ravi is a researcher. He has been a professor. He also provides solutions to different business enterprises, and he's also a trainer. So he has over 11 plus years of professional experience, and he has provided data-driven, action-oriented solutions to challenging business problems. He's a data scientist with a demonstrated ability to deliver valuable insights via data analytics and advanced data-driven methods. He has been key advisor in driving global multi-billion-dollar growth, gains in customer loyalty, and record-setting profit improvements. So on behalf of ZBI Academy, and I think all the participants here today, I welcome you, Dr. Ravi, and I give the floor to you to talk about big data and help us delve further into it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anu and Team ZBI, right? And welcome everybody. Hope you can hear me loud and clear. Let's have a quick sanity check first. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Saroj. Thanks, Vay, right? So thanks for that wonderful interaction, right? And the introduction as well. And what we can do is we can just have quickly the share of my screen, where I can lead them to to different platforms of big data aspects, local versus global, and let's say the cloud framework also we can work on.
Perfect.
So just give me a second, and I'm going to share my screen, and we can make it. Just give me a second. All right, so I hope everybody can see my screen. So today, as of now, if I talk about the kind of agenda which we have, so we are going to discuss on various aspects of big data. Let me know what exactly are the kind of exposures we have. Since you got to know about me, just one liner of your introduction would help me, to shape the session accordingly. All right. So everybody can just put one liner on their current profile or domain or their exposure to big data. How much awareness we have on big data architecture or big data analytics, and then we can plan it. Great. Sabay has got, let's say, 8 years of experience. Somebody is working in Apache Airflow. Some of you already right? Good to know that. So welcome to this weekend.
Sorry to interrupt, Ravi. We were facing some issues with the voice.
We're sorry for the inconvenience. I think, yeah, Dr. Ravi is back. Ravi, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think there was a glitch.
Yeah.
Let me just fix up that. Give me one minute, right?
Sure, Ravi. Yeah. So I request you all for your patience for another 2-3 minutes, and then Ravi shall be back. maybe till then, the question that he has asked everybody, maybe you can just type
Yeah,
that.
I'm here only. The only thing is that
Yeah.
I just need to fix the volume.
Yeah, sure, Ravi. Please take your time. Till then, maybe, all of you can just like quickly put it in the chat box as to what your experience with big data is like. Thank you.
All right, so I think now the voice is better, or let me know. Is it fine, Anu?
It was breaking in the middle, but maybe you can just start speaking. If it breaks again, I'll let you know.
Just let me know. I mean, let's have.
Sure.
Is still there, right?
No, I think you can start now.
Now somebody saying that. Let me have a test. That will help us.
Yeah, I think your voice is breaking. I couldn't understand in the end.
Yeah. Once again, a quick test. Is it fine now? Better than the previous? Without any lag? That will help us.
Yeah, this is better.
Oh, perfect. All right, so let's begin the agenda. Let me know meanwhile if you have any problem out there to listen or to understand it. So there are beginners as well and there are experts. So we'll discuss, how exactly we can, make use of the session in terms of understanding the expert architectures as well as the kind of introduction to big data architectures as well. So the agenda which we have brought forward for you guys is like working on the introduction part, working on the kind of aspects of Hadoop ecosystem, how exactly we can work out on Hadoop ecosystem, why exactly we choose a Spark or a kind of a PySpark instance, how it speed up my process, and then what kind of languages we need to understand or learn for processing the kind of big data solutions, right? Apart from that, we are going to work out on some real-time applications that how exactly we can work on, let's say, creating the kind of solutions on a cloud-based environment. So how AWS or Azure can be customized for our workouts. Before I get into the basic aspects, those who already have the Azure and AWS accounts, they can tune that because we have limited time period, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly set up, let's say, a kind of a monitoring over there. That's a HD Insight Spark monitoring. So you require a set of workouts on Azure platform. There are so many services on any of the cloud platforms. So I hope at least we are aware of what exactly is Azure and AWS, correct? Please confirm in the chat box. Are we all aware of what are the kind of different cloud platforms we have, right? So Meena Ketan says yes, Veera says yes, great. Okay. So we can customize this all services and we can work on the kind of instances as per our requirements. The only thing is if I just can see here, I can create any kind of a resource of my choice, even to connect on big data or machine learning, artificial intelligence on any of the IoT technologies as well. We can directly work on that. We can also very well connected with the SQL based databases. So what you can do is you can work out on storage accounts, load balancers, and all such kind of resources which are useful for our day-to-day workouts. Now, when I talk about, let's say, what kind of services I can use for creating the big data architectures and all, so you can write here something like HD Insight clusters, you will find there are so many things like Edge Factory tools, Hortonworks, our data platform, that is Sandbox. All right, so we can also get into that. And there could be some Spark monitoring and all. So multiple vendors are there actually to create and develop the solutions, or the kind of cloud platform solutions, or let's say the Hadoop based workouts, right? So we have got two things. One is how to create a Hadoop based environment, and how to create a particular, the environment for a Spark framework. Once you get into a creative virtual machine, you'll be requiring a subscription out there, and which you can directly work out on any of the subscription which you have already have. You have to create a resource group. Let's say we are going to create a resource group name in the name of Zebia. You can mention the machine name, and you can select any region. So there are certain charges, right? For example, a standard plan is there, and we have also got multiple such kind of memories on the base of memory usage. Ashi is not Azure focusation. It's basically for running a particular platform. I definitely, for even big data workouts, we need to work on a platform. So one of the platform you have to use, either you have to use Cloudera, or you have to use Azure, or you have to use AWS. Are you getting my point? So it's not Azure focused. Azure is only a tool or a technology, or let's say a platform for my workouts. Kubernetes here, correct? So we'll discuss all this. Any other question you have? Okay. So we can see that we can create any kind of a environment, and we can work out on that, and we can work out with the kind of let's say security shells as well, and you can review and create the particular environment, right, of your choice for a given virtual machine. Similarly, let it create by itself, and what it does is basically we also have something like IntelliJ. So hope you can see that platform. I don't know, it's a bit in dark mode. So you can see now we have got a terminal out there. We have got a Hadoop based clustering mechanism. We have got a configuration. We have got server stacks, server metrics. Okay, you can also work on, let's say, Spark monitoring. So a lot many services are there. Apart from that, in the right side, extreme right side, you can see that I got something like big data tools. Correct. So big data tools could be Hadoop or Spark monitoring connections. So you can directly enter into any of the platforms. IntelliJ is again one of the best platforms which we can use and we can customize. Okay. So I'm not discussing. I'm not going to run the command. So don't worry about that. There's only just to demonstrate what platforms we have got the opportunities to work upon. Okay. So straightforward, I can have a direct connection with IntelliJ. Okay. You can read the documentations and you can work out. So first thing is where exactly I need to work out upon this. Okay. So I can work on Azure platform. I can work on, let's say, what we can say is the platform which is available as Cloudera. Okay. IntelliJ, I just told that. Okay, let me share the link, right, by the way. Okay, it's from JetBrains. Hope you remember the working on PyCharm and all. So I'm sharing this to everybody. You can get the downloads for the same. Most of the people, they also preferred Cloudera platforms. So the another platform which is commonly used is Cloudera, which directly give you the open source to work on it. Okay, it's free and open source. As you could see, my Azure platform, which I was using, requires some of the kind of charges as well to connect to that. Or in this platform, you can directly work out on all the products. For data engineering, you can work out on that. You can work on data flow. Data science workbench is there. It's a CDP, Cloudera data platforms, which you can work out, right? And we can work on all the aspects which are related to that. So talked about lot many vendors and all. Let's come to the aspects of why exactly you need a big data. Okay, anybody from the audience would like to say that? When do I require a big data? Put that in the chat box so everybody can see that. So when do we play with big data, or when do we start working out on big data, by the way? Please answer. I mean, those who are already working, they can answer that, right? So we have a big data introduction to platform. First of all, we understand how exactly a big data ecosystem works. So you can see that we can work on different platforms for big data sets. Different ecosystems are available. When I say big data, it is large size of data sets. Even zettabytes and petabytes we deal with. Why do we use a big data platform or big data kind of a architecture? Because I cannot store my information in my local machine, like in my laptop. It is beyond that, even, let's say, the limits of my machine. I can have, let's say, a computer lab where exactly I can, break this particular data sets into multiple parts, and I can commonly access them from different systems. That also you can do. People can have local servers, right? So whenever there is a huge amount of data set, huge varieties of data sets, huge volumes of data set we are dealing with, or even when we talk about veracities, like with accuracies also we need to get the data set. So therefore we work on big data aspects. It has got, by the way, 5 V's: volume, variety, veracity, right? Apart from that, value, right? It also generates value for business, correct? And yep, it also comes with a great velocity, the speed. So it has got a particular, 5 V's basically when we talk about why do we get into big data. These are the big data features. So mainly if it's a cloud platform, I'll be preferring Azure or AWS platform or a GCP platform. Otherwise, I can come across, let's say, any kind of I can also have a kind of a private cloud for my company, or I can create my own Hadoop-based infrastructure. So when it comes to big data ecosystem, we have got certain platforms. Let's say for scale out databases, we have got 10gen, Neo4j, all these kind of platforms are available. Horizontal platforms are available, like working on InfoChimps, Cosata, then all. HADAPT, that's Adapt. And for vertical platforms, which works on forward and backward integrations as well. So Splunk is there. Big data visualizations tools, we can use either the Tableau or SAS oriented visualizations. We can come to the database connects. We can work on, let's say, a SQL, NoSQL based kind of workout. We can also work on, let's say, the hardware. So we also are connected with, let's say, different platforms provided by Dell, and all the kind of backup which is given by NetApp. They help us to process big data. So there are so many platforms for different services. We can use them. IBM has its own cloud-based environment, right? As I told you that Cloudera is another platform which provides you the Hadoop interface. So Cloudera, Intel, Hortonworks, MapReduce, right? That kind of activity you can do easily. IBM, they're all providers. Okay. Now my question is, if I talk about either of, I was talking something on Hadoop, right? So what this Hadoop architecture is all about, and what kind of activities we are supposed to do inside it. So when I work on a Hadoop activity, I am working on structured data, semi-structured and unstructured data sets. Okay. So you know that what is a structured data, what is unstructured data, what is a semi-structured data. The structured data means which is very well explained, very well formatted, and the documentations like this Excel files and all, which carries number of rows and columns without any larger dimensions to work upon, unlike images. So we can deal with this kind of structured data sets. Unstructured is like dealing with text data or images, right? JSON frameworks, or working on, let's say, signals, waves, etc. So it is difficult to handle them, the unstructured one. So for unstructured, it's very well used, as well as the structured is also can be useful, which the Hadoop platform can also be useful for analyzing structured data as well. Because of the large size, we definitely want to even analyze structured data on Hadoop platform. So it's known as Hadoop Distributed File System, HDFS, which you can connect with any kind of a Unix workout. So I'll discuss what kind of language workouts are required. Let's say the bash commands are there, the Unix frameworks are there, Linux frameworks are there. So how exactly operating system also get tuned to the architectures of your Hadoop platform or Spark platform. So you can see that Hadoop distributed file system is there, which actually stores data directly into files. You have got something like Hadoop MapReduce, where exactly with a map, what we can do is we can apply certain functions to our databases, which are distributed in a cluster. I'll show you that how exactly a cluster looks like. So these clusters are actually connected, and then what we through a central node, and then I can access all these files, all these data sets, where exactly the files are being broken into multiple parts and stored on different systems. I can virtually and let's say physically also store them and connect. So I can have a fully distributed platform. Similar to that, we can also have the Spark-based environment. Spark is basically a Scala-based, programming environment, which helps you to connect very well with the kind of big data architectures, mainly the clusters and all. Here we have got data frames, RDDs, resilient distributed data sets, which we can work upon, and it makes our work easy. So it is almost 10 to 100 times faster operations we can have with a Spark framework. And what to talk about PySpark? PySpark is like working on Python and along with a Spark environment, right? I'll show you some of the examples how exactly we can customize that. You can also have the queries. Many times when we are connected with databases, we have certain queries to perform, correct? Okay, there is a question by Sayan that what exactly are the differences between the vertical and horizontal. So let me finish this and then we'll connect on that. So you can see that there are so many platforms there are so many, let's say databases available. And one of the basic crucial aspect of it is like, can I run query on that to select data, to add data, to delete data, or to work out on, let's say, creating tables over there. So SQL-based queries are also worked out and supported by a Hadoop ecosystem by working on HiveQL. There is something like Scoop, which helps us to scoop the data, or let's say transfer the data files into our system, right? So we have got a proper architecture to work, which works on source systems, which further take it to data storage, which help us to even get into distributed data processing. So source systems are structured, unstructured kind of data sets. Data storage services are available with HBase, Apache HBase, which works on tables and columnar storage. I have got something like Hadoop SDFS, which work on storing data directly into a files. Then we are going to process that with Hadoop MapReduce, Spark, Hadoop Spark framework, and then we are going to normalize the data structure by working on SQL queries or scripting or Scoop. And finally, we can have the APIs, right? So we can have certain APIs to work upon, let's say, the BI tools, or it could be visualization, or it could be machine learning. So when we can do the machine learning part very easily with the Hadoop or big data ecosystems with Spark. Can anybody name the library which is available for machine learning with a Spark? Okay, MLib is the correct answer actually. I got two answers. PySpark basically, yeah, we definitely use the PySpark wherein exactly we can work, integrate Python and Spark all together, the best one. But yeah, MLib is the particular library which we use generally to work out with machine learning in Spark. Okay. So we'll come to the discussion on machine learning, how exactly it is being performed, how to create a Spark instance or PySpark instance. So you can see that I can work on the Spark or PySpark framework, or a Hadoop also can be integrated with your local machines very easily, right? So what you do is you can work on a Spark and a PySpark, which is slightly different from the previous ecosystem. You can see that we are working in Docker containerization. We can quickly connect to EC2 services from AWS. We can work on, say, the different languages like Scala, Java, Python R. They are all supported. Mainly it's Scala basically, which people are using, and then the Python, right, nowadays. So we can also perform, there is a Spark SQL, which is useful for working out on queries. Spark streaming is to stream data sets, make it live, and Spark MLib is there to work on machine learning. Like that, we can work on even visualizations as well. This is RDD, resilient distributed data sets. So RDDs basically help us to understand how fault tolerant data set can be created and how I can read that. many times there are many clusters which we design, and they they are failed because of the reason that the system over a kind of a region gets shut down. So in that case, they are all stopped working. They all stop working, right? So in that case, what we do is we work on resilient distributed data sets, which is distributed and fault tolerant data set which we can work out with. And Spark Core basically has got a source of data sets from different environments: Hadoop, Cassandra, then Apache HBase, Hive, and so many, right? The main aspects which we cover up is like while we differentiate them is Spark versus Hadoop based MapReduce operations can be separated as on the basis of the factors, that is speed, the kind of language which they prefer, the data pre-processing or the processing steps, ease of use, and caching. So we can also have data in memory and work out on the caches as well, which can enhance the system performance with Spark. We also can have ease of use with more with Spark. It's very compactly built up, and it has got easy language to be consumed over there. That's Scala. Even Python becomes the best choice, and it's 100 times faster than the MapReduce operations with Hadoop. The languages which we need to learn or we need to work out is like number one, Python, Scala. Then we have got R programming, SQL, Julia, SAS, and whatnot, right? And these are the languages we need to, we can work out with. And to work on, let's say, real-time applications, right, with a particular given, framework on Azure platform, we can have n number of things to be processed. So a typical Azure Big Data Lab demonstration, if I showcase, okay, it's a virtual machine which I'll create. Then I can work on, let's say, Data Factory, which will have the pipeline of my data sets and to be analyzed. It basically connected to some storage services. Then I'll be having Data Factory, and there I can further have the storage for say score data set, or also I can use machine learning services, okay, in the Azure platform to get some predictions or prescriptions. Then also I can have the Spark for data processing. I can use the Spark internally, like I was showing in let's say IntelliJ. We can also then visualize data sets using Power BI because it's a Microsoft product. And we can also have web applications, right? We can also build up a web applications finally, which works on certain aspects. Let's say I want to create a e-commerce website which works on predictions, which works on chatbots, and so many. And we can also see that we have got a parallel deployed services which are available with the Azure platform. So end user is actually seeing this application which is having a backup of entire big data architecture which is available inside Azure platform. Similarly, we have got the AWS platform also, where exactly we can work out on all these aspects, right? And what all things we can do is, let me just come and connect to my computer lab. Just give me one second. So we can quickly connect to these different types of services which are available with us. And let me show you. Here you can find that, for the syntaxing determinant, which you can use. You can also work on, let's say, storage. Storage is blob storage, which we can work out with. and we can work on terminals. Similarly, I can show you the Spark workout. First of all, let me just introduce to Spark how I have used my Windows operations to integrate with Spark. So what I can do is I can come to my, let's say, command prompt. Hope you can see that. In this command prompt in my Windows, what I'm doing is I'm writing now Spark shell. I'll show you. You can see in your notebooks as well. So once I do that Spark shell, I write Spark shell over there. So Spark is always the best one when we talk about speedy operations. The only thing is that you have to command over the libraries, right? What exactly are there? And Scala is also required for that. Even you can use PySpark, which works the best. So now you can see I'm able to connect to my machine. It is a Spark context which we need to create. It's version 3.0.1 and it's based on Scala program. It says that it is running somewhere. Okay. And we can even connect to that particular given resource while working on these HTTP URL. Hey guys, can you see that Apache Spark 3.0.1 ready now with jobs and stages and storage? So I'm not discussing all this. Today is like the awareness program which we are creating to work out on choosing the best parameter platform. So obviously, I would recommend Spark to work out on all these aspects. And if you are not aware of Spark, let's see how exactly it can be worked out. We have what the Hadoop properties out there. Okay, how many of you are using it locally, by the way? How many of you are connecting Spark or let's say any other platform in a local machine? Done a cloud environment. Sumit or Ashish, anybody? Okay. So we have got this platform which can integrate even with a CLI based environments. And same is, you can also program the same with IntelliJ. Okay, I have shown you that. And if I want to work on PySpark, the only thing is, let's say, if I come here and I write simply the exit operation on that. Okay, I think this is what. Okay. Yeah, Control D you can use. Either you can write quit. So when you are using PySpark, mainly we write exit and mainly we use a Scala. We are comfortable with writing the option as quit. Anyways, that's secondary. Let's write something like PySpark in my system. And now this will be an environment of Spark only, but working with Python. So hope we can see that, right? So it's my Spark only, but you can see now I'm writing Python, right? So there is a system that is operating system, right? There is a particular library which is operating system. You can see that I'm importing that, right? So now you can see that it has got a warning out there. Let me try to work out on, let's say, how exactly I can work out with the different types of operations. Like I can have the RDD framework. I can have, let's say, different resilient distributed data sets, or I can even, work on simple functions, right? So are we clear, first of all, how to run this locally, right? You want the access that, that we can work out on, let's say, on a local machine first, or you want the access now on a cloud-based environment. It's up to you. So you can operate on local environment, and I can share you the links, right? How exactly you can work out on the local environment first. Let me show you that. So Spark environment, or let me write Spark integration rather. With Windows. Okay. You can set up your Spark environment locally, and you can start working on it. Shrikant is asking that Hadoop processing is working based on data locality also. Okay, so how it is achieved when your data is sitting on Azure cloud storage? Data sitting on, I mean, it's like I'm using a service or what? You mean to say that I'm using a, let's say, blob service from Azure platform? Okay, so it likes for you, you want to say that when I talk about, yeah, it is Azure blob, correct. So when we talk about the framework of data locality, right? It's what we do is in Hadoop, we are got a process of moving and compute the kind of a what we can say the entire operations of the data sets, like including MapReduce and all, which are basically done locally, right? So we have got certain things like I can work on expedition with the data sets for working on data locality, and I can work out on, let's say, the concept which actually works on, let's say, SDFS cluster. I can also run the MapReduce jobs inside. So that's all exactly we can do it, right? In the kind of category of my data locality in Hadoop platform. So that optimization is available. So to check on that optimization, it depends on how exactly you're doing that. Are you going to say that, when I talk about, let's say, Azure based environment, it's like, it's not a local, right? It's basically a kind of a global platform, and therefore we are not using that particular data locality optimization. Is it, Shrikant? Exactly. But the thing is, like, we have got our own instances. We are working on, let's say, our own interconnected servers. So for them, it's actually going to be a local data locality issue. Okay. I mean, that architecture is designed in such a way that for an individual user, or let's say for a particular given user, be it a company or whatever, it's like working like in a private server or a cloud. So for them, it's like, again, data locality concept only. It's not that which is publicized. Apart from that, if I go ahead with, let's say, let me come back to my screen. Okay. So as of now, you can see that we can work on, let's say, PySpark directly. And this PySpark will have so many entities to work with. Now, first thing which I work out on PySpark is why exactly I'm using that. So I'm using that because I want to work on fault tolerant data structures. I can work on data frames, and that becomes easy for working on big data sets, right? So I'm using Spark, by the way. And with Python, I'm going to integrate that with PySpark. So PySpark is coming out with PySpark shell, and it is already a kind of a Python API which I'm working on. I can definitely set up a path. So that link I have shared, how exactly to set up a path and to work on, let's say, initiating with a local machine-based environment for connecting with Spark. Now to manage the data flow, what we can do is we can always create a Spark context. So we can work on a class here, which works on a PySpark dot working on, let's say, Spark context to begin with. And then what we can do is we can write the app name. So I can create a particular given app name, which help me to work on set parameters for PySpark start, right, or initiation of that. So we can create the app name. And when I create the app name, it has to be like the app name, the name should be capital over there. Okay. So let's say that it's the app name is ZB only, which I write. And I'm not using that as, if I don't use that as string, I mean, I directly put that without using a kind of a inverted quote or something like that. You can see that if I just create that, it basically comes up with a kind of a error. So we can create a particular PySpark instance using the Spark context, which you can directly work by creating this library. Let's say from PySpark. Now let me import a Spark context directly. Okay. Once I create that, I say now Spark context is equals to the Spark context function to be applied on. Let's say I want to use it local, and let's create the app name as, let's say, my underscore app, name underscore app, whatever you name want to give. Now it says that cannot run the multiple Spark context at once. So because I had created already that class, which was actually using it, so it is giving that kind of a given error. So you have to again shut it down and restart your application. Otherwise, you can, you can even work out with, let's say, what kind of the architectures or what kind of data sets you already have. You can even begin the process with that with the given Spark context. So we can work on all the kind of Spark context which you want to create, and we can customize it every time when we are using the applications. So data flow, if I talk about in PySpark, would be like I create a Spark context while working on a Py4j. Py4j is like Python for Java kind of framework, which works like a socket here. And I can work on manage my clusters with a Spark worker. I can have a Python based workout with the Spark worker, and I can have multiple pipes over there. Okay, so I can have a JVM machine, or I can also have the Python framework to work on this stuff. So these are all the kind of different aspects to work upon on, let's say, creating the Spark context and working on that. Next thing is like you can also create RDDs. You can also work on the kind of mechanisms like parallelize and all. So what I do is, let me come to the direct repository of Spark. And now once we are understanding how exactly the Spark operates, what kind of libraries I need to learn. So come to Spark and you will see that there are certain libraries: SQL and data frames, Spark streaming, mlib, graphics, etc. Suppose I want to work on machine learning. So I'll use this machine learning library and syntaxing using either of these languages. So let's say I want to work out on algorithms. I can have classification, regression, ML workflow, etc., which can be managed. So all this kind of libraries are supported. All these kind of operations are supported with the Spark environment with mlib. Now, how to get into mlib? So I just simply get into a Spark mlib framework, which comes with the particular entire documentations. Okay, now you can see that I have different API docs here. How to work on Spark Scala, Spark Java, Spark Python, Spark R API. So there are multiple APIs which are supported for Spark framework. As well as I can have the program guides, like I can work on mlib. This was the, let's say, example which we're talking about. So I can work on machine learning library, and You now yourself can get into this by working on different types of aspects. Let's say I want to do the basic stats. So the basic stats, what you need to do is you can run on any of the languages. I can run on Scala, I can run with Java, I can run with Python. So for Python, what you need to do is you just want to write all this particular, you can also use a Jupyter notebook rather, right? Instead of working on all this stuff over here, you can also create an instance on Jupyter notebook, which you can even use on Colab. So let's see that if Google Colab is having the architecture ready for us. So I'll go to Google Colab. We'll try to manage this big data sets, or let's say parallelizing the kind of repositories or data structures from Spark context. So I can open up it directly. So PySpark is very fast, and the best answer which you get is like work on PySpark to do the best possible tunings with your data sets for machine learning, for data structure, data analysis, for streaming and everything, right? So you can see what we do is from PySpark.ml, we have linear algebraic principles, and we're gonna work out with that. So let's create that. Let's use this library now on Google Colab. So we are going to identify data answers with correlation using the Spark environment. Okay. Now it says that there is no module named PySpark. So what you can do is you can come up and simply write there pip install and PySpark and redo the process. Ashish says that PySpark emblem is not popular with data scientists. They still prefer Python or Jupyter notebooks, and they use pandas. Yeah, I do understand, but when it comes to, let's say, large size of data frames or data structures, in that case, definitely they have to switch over to that, or they can go to the GPUs and the framework with the parallel processing with cloud environment. Okay, that SSL is missing there. You can see that. Let's see. The reason is that why they're not using it, because they might be working on, let's say, a very limited data frame or data sets, and therefore they don't want to create any pipeline. They don't want to work on, let's say, a cloud-based environment, and they do it locally with pandas. With pandas also, we can work on connecting of the databases like SQL and all. So with SQLite 3 and all. So there's no problem doing that. So whatever I get now on the kind of PySpark, I can totally work out here with Colab as well. You can see that, right? Google Collaboratory is to work on Jupyter notebooks. For the Spark framework also, you can use that. You can work on statistics. All right, you'll be able to work on all this statistics. Suppose I want to get into something like extracting transformation and these kind of features. You can definitely work on text mining. So you have all these architectures ready. You have to create a data frame. Yes, you can create that with Spark. You want to work on, let's say, variables. You can just work out them. So this is all self-explanatory. You will not get, any hurdle out there to work with any of the languages. If you want to use locally, like I'm using it on Scala on my local machine, you can even use that. You want to use Python, you can use Jupyter Notebook. So I've given you all the options, right? Please confirm. Are we clear, guys? Please confirm. And let's do that. Now it says that PySpark is not available. Okay, so I had to tune further, all these operations at my, let's say, Jupyter Notebook, going to the reason that, at Colab. So that team has not managed it. So I have to again create the kind of, let's say, Spark context. So here you can see that I have not created that. That's why, it's giving the problem. But let me check it internally with my local machine. So I go directly without tuning in my local machine. And it says that there is no module known as NumPy. Okay, so I'll install that. Can I directly work on, let's say, the import of this that is package, that is linalg, and then working on vectors. So some repositories are required, like working on numpys, etc. So if it is not there, what you can do is you can even say pip install numpy. Now it is not tuned actually. My module is, or let's say my notebook is again, the command prompt is not tuned for that. Exactly the reason is like I'm already working on, yeah, you can see that. So there is no such model which is available because I prefer working on Jupyter notebooks. So just try to try to install that with the command prompt and then work out again. You'll be able to run all this kind of instances. Yeah, Abhay says that it's like people say shell command. So I'm using a kind of environment with Python. And PySpark is also created. So you can see that I can even joke out with that. Something like that. And yes, if you want to work on any of the other platforms like getting to work on, let's say, Azure and all, you can definitely do that as well. So it's a Cloud Shell which I can work out with. And I can also go to my resource where exactly the entire the kind of Horton works and based environment is working. We can definitely get into that. Here you'll get the credentials as your subscription ID, which is basically without which you cannot work out. And it creates your the entire environment as a virtual machine, right? That becomes your, let's say, public IP address, which you can use it, and you can further check it out. It's basically the IP configuration which you can work out with. And there's an option, right, to connect with security shells. You can also work out on that. All right, you can monitor your virtual machine's health, all the aspects. The monitoring is also available, and you can also have Azure Monitor as a service to work on it. The only thing is that you have to again pass a resource group for the given service. So you can use Azure Monitoring instead of that. So right guys, I think now you can work out on different devices, different systems and environments. Slightly tune your environment, make it ready for your workouts, and you'll be able to do that parallel, correct? Over to you, Ms. Anu. You can also have a small discussion with the audience and regarding the kind of the programs.
Am I audible to you?
Yeah, Anand.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Thanks, Robbie, for taking such an informative and factual session. And thanks all the participants who are attending our session. I'm sure you must be now having a clear picture of the technology in the big data architecture world. Keeping all the skills in mind, Zebia has curated a course which stretches over 5 months of duration. And if anybody of you is interested in learning those skills and having hands-on in it, you may join our batch, which is going to be started from 22nd of May. I will be sharing my screen with you to give you a clear picture of the program and also share the details in the chat portal. Let me know if the screen is visible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it is a program, as I said, a certification course which helps you in mastering in big data architecture. So the batch starts from 22nd of May. There's a discount on the fee as well for people who have attended the webinar and wish to join the batch. My number is also provided if somebody wish to have a detailed knowledge of what our course is about to offer you, and the email ID if you want to get in touch through the mail. If anybody has any kind of question which is left, we can quickly have a question answer session, and accordingly we can take it forward. If there are any questions left, we can have a Q&A.
So there's one question that Mohit has put for you, Ravi. If you could just check the chat box.
Sure. So Mohit says that how to choose between different set of tools like PubSub or Spark, streaming or BigQuery or Hadoop plus data lake, any thoughts on that? So it depends on what kind of environments you're working. First of all, it depends on the client per se as well. Number one, for example, if I talk about working on Spark streaming, okay. Now there are so many things which you need to work out. Let's say whether I will be choosing a platform as a cloud environment, and for Spark streaming also I'm using Kafka, Flume, or SDFS framework, or Kinesis. So there are multiple things you need to consider. So it's not that straightforward always that, okay, this is the pipeline which you want to create or you want to use. It depends on, industry. It depends on what kind of problem you are dealing with. So it is basically coming from that problem statement itself. I repeat, when I get a problem statement, according to the problem statement, I'll customize my entire pipeline accordingly. So it may happen that I'm going to work out on, let's say, Twitter-based streaming, right? So I can definitely go with the Spark streaming. I want to work out on then further working on the SDFS or, let's say, databases or dashboards, whatever I want to work out with. So basically, what we do as in general practice is I get the particular, let's say, the request from the client that we need this kind of a problem, let's say building up a prescriptive analytics tool or working on predictions, etc. And then we take a call that what kind of tool would be suitable enough. Shall I work on RDDs? So that it can be data be like in the form of a RDD, or it could be like a data frame, or whether I need a query, to run the particular, architectures. So it all depends on the databases which are dependent on problem statements. So the right thing is what kind of problem statement we have, in that what kind of data set we have. According to that, I already discussed that if you want to work on queries and all, you can definitely go towards that section. Otherwise, if you're already a kind of a CSV framework, you're dealing with some unstructured workouts you're going to have. In that case, what you get is you can directly create the resilient distributed data sets.
Okay, thank you. Ravi, I'm not sure if you could also talk about this one question, which says difference between vertical and horizontal platforms, and another is like a follow-up wherein the person is asking, what does Spark context function do?
Okay. So where is that question? I mean, is it in the...
It's in the Q&A, yeah.
This is Mohit Lal's question, and there's basically like Cyan K, right? The difference between the vertical and the horizontal platforms. So when I talk about the horizontal and vertical platforms, you can see that how exactly we are going to create a particular service over there in my given domain. Now, to give an example, let's say if I want to work on vertical or horizontal platform in software frameworks, we definitely work on the scaling aspects, right? So I can have, let's say, data scaling, which can be done in two ways. One is the vertical, one is going to be horizontal service. Now, what I do is basically, let's take a challenge now. Let's say I go to work on storage of my data. I have the target of searching it and analyze the huge amount of data which is available, right? Now, one of the obstacle or the challenge which you face in the big data aspect is like how to work on the analysis platform. Now, the question is how exactly vertical or horizontal come into picture is from the kind of a challenge which you face, but what kind of analysis service or platform I would be choosing. Now, why exactly we are doing that? We have got two ways of scaling the data sets: horizontal scaling and, let's say, vertical scaling. The basic aim of the entire platform is to set a complete investigation of all the kind of let's say analytical tools in two ways. And if I talk about working on, let's say, vertical platform, The vertical platform is well connected in the way of, let's say, top to bottom approach, where exactly I can have the scalability. I can use this, what we can say, the graphic processing. I can have the big data framework. All these things becomes easy for me to practice upon. I can have the parallel or horizontal workouts. So that we can work on graphic processing units, GPUs, etc. So that becomes a kind of a horizontal framework for me. A sequential framework I can use like a vertical, platform setup. I hope you got it right. We are going to have, let's say, a framework which we can run in parallel way, or we can also work on sequential way. So moreover, we are using the parallel processing. We are using the GPU usage to scale the data sets than a sequential workflow.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much for taking out some time and delivering this session. I think it was very insightful, and you also kept it very engaging. If there are questions, you can mail it to us and we'll reach out to Dr. Ravi. We'll get the answers and we'll get back to you for sure.